There is a strange, silent pain in recognizing someone's soul as part of your own, and yet seeing it living beside another person. When that connection seems to transcend ordinary love, many label it a twin flame bond, deep, magnetic, transformative. But what happens when that flame is with someone else? The mind falls into conflict, the heart is lost in unanswered questions, and the soul cries out for a deeper meaning. This video dives into the abyss of these intense relationships through the lens of Carl Jung's analytical psychology, revealing the invisible reasons why this connection, no matter how true it feels, may not be by your side right now. Here, pain becomes understanding and despair awakening. If this topic touches your soul, write in the comments. I trust the timing of my journey. When we think of a twin flame connection, we're often facing a powerful psychic mirror, not just a romantic partner, but a profound reflection of unconscious parts of ourselves. Carl Jung gives us a precious key to understand these intense bonds, especially when the other person is involved with someone else. The first essential notion here is projection. Jung teaches that by projecting unrecognized inner aspects, particularly anima and animus, we create idealized images in others. The soul twin is often a projection of our own desire for wholeness, for psychic integration. Another crucial idea is the shadow. This inaccessible partner may be activating repressed material, insecurities, emotional neediness, fear of abandonment. The shadow invites us to look within, not without. The frustrated relationship thus becomes a catalyst for self-knowledge. The concept of individuation also intertwines here. Jung defines this process as the path to becoming who we truly are, by integrating our internal opposites. If that connection isn't available right now, perhaps it's serving as an impetus for you to walk more courageously toward your own wholeness. Finally, it's vital to understand the integration of opposites, masculine and feminine, light and shadow, desire and frustration. When the other is with someone else, life may be offering you a mirror for what still needs healing within yourself. Before that union, real or symbolic, can consciously and transformatively occur. It's common that when we meet someone whose presence strikes the soul like lightning, we feel we finally found the right person, the legendary twin flame. The intensity of their gaze, the sense of deep recognition, the inexplicable synchronicities all seem to conspire to confirm that narrative. But according to Jung, that is precisely where the danger lies. What we feel as destiny may in fact be a powerful psychic projection. Projection, in analytical psychology, is the mechanism by which we cast unacknowledged parts of ourselves onto others. When these parts are intense and unconscious, the attraction becomes overwhelming. We're not only in love with an external person, we're in a way in love with a part of ourselves that we see in that other. That is why this person seems to complete us. They embody what we have not yet recognized or accepted in ourselves. Jung called these inner images the unconscious masculine and feminine, animus and anima. When a woman projects her animus onto a man, or a man projects his anima onto a woman, the other becomes a living receptacle of all idealized, repressed or denied qualities. This projection can be positive, generating enchantment, fascination, admiration, or negative, creating jealousy, fear of abandonment, even obsession. In both cases, the projected image blinds us to the other's reality as they truly are. The twin flame, then, is often not the person themselves, but the mirror in which we see ourselves reflected. This kind of experience is often mistaken for fate, but what's at stake is the encounter with a lost part of ourselves. And here lies the paradox. The more intense the connection, the more it reveals an internal wound, an ancient lack, an empty space crying out to be filled. The soul recognizes in the other what is missing, but instead of looking inward, the ego wants to possess, to hold on, to be sure. That's why when this person is with someone else, the suffering is excruciating. It's not just about rejection, it's as if a part of us is being denied, as if the universe showed us the soul's map and then ripped it from our hands. But if we return to Jungian thought, we understand that this pain is not punishment, but invitation. The other is representing something essential we haven't yet integrated. They are a mirror of our own incompleteness. The illusion of projection keeps us trapped in fantasies. We construct mental narratives about when we're together or why they should be with me. But these stories pull us away from the real inner work. Instead of asking, Why are they with someone else when we should ask, what is this situation trying to show me about myself? By withdrawing projection, the other ceases to be hero or villain of our inner drama and becomes a symbol, a portal to the deepest parts of our psyche. Recognizing a projection doesn't deny the felt connection, but transforms its purpose. The impulse is no longer attachment, but self-awareness. When we can see that the other is not destiny but mirror, we begin to free them from the obligation to complete us, and in doing so, we also free ourselves. This is the moment the journey shifts from being about the other to being about ourselves. The twin flame, then, may have fulfilled its role by igniting an inner fire, a reminder of who we really are. Paradoxically, the absence of the other becomes the greatest opportunity for reconnection with the self. Because sometimes the true soul meeting is not between two people, but between you and your lost essence. The pain of seeing someone you feel is your twin flame with another can seem unbearable. It's a wound that burns in silence, scorches with comparisons, suffocates with recurring thoughts of what might have been. Yet, in the light of Jungian psychology, that pain is not merely the echo of unrequited love, it is a profound call to confront the shadow. Jung defines the shadow as all that the ego rejects, represses, or refuses to recognize as part of itself. It is not evil by nature, it is unconscious, and that is precisely why it holds so much power. When someone we've idealized chooses another, the shadow manifests as insecurity, jealousy, self-devaluation, feelings of inadequacy. Often we hear thoughts like, why her and not me? What's missing in me? Am I not enough? These questions signal the shadow revealing itself, not to punish us, but to be integrated. The shadow often feeds on what was not welcomed in childhood: rejections, abandonments, emotional deprivations, subtle or explicit traumas. The other, by not meeting our expectations, activates these ancient wounds. They did not create them, only served as an archetypal trigger. That's why the suffering is disproportionate. We suffer not only for the present, but for a lifetime of unresolved emotional history surfacing to the surface. The most common reaction is to flee from that pain. We seek distractions, rationalizations, spiritual justifications that make us feel special, even in the other's absence. But Jung invites us to do the opposite, to plunge in, to look at that pain as one looks at an old forgotten letter, a message from the unconscious that only now we're ready to understand. In this sense, suffering becomes a compass toward healing. Every feeling of abandonment reveals a part of ourselves also abandoned by us. Every sense of unworthiness reveals a limiting belief shaped over our lives. The shadow does not want to destroy us. It wants to be seen, recognized, and brought into the light of consciousness. The other, by stepping away, becomes the unwitting messenger of this process. It's also common that instead of looking inward, the ego tries to regain control by understanding the other's behavior. He is confused. She will realize she belongs with me. We're spiritually connected, he will come back. These fantasies, although understandable, often keep us away from the real work, acknowledging what this loss forces us to feel and what feeling that feeling reveals about who we are when we're not chosen. Jung asserted that there is no illumination without shadow integration. That means until we welcome the parts of ourselves that feel unworthy, jealous, lonely, or rejected, we won't be able to love fully, neither ourselves nor the other, even if they were with us. The pain of separation, then, can be a rite of passage toward expanded consciousness, as long as it isn't squandered on denial or escape. As we look at what this situation shows us about our beliefs, reactions, and vulnerabilities, something begins to transform. The wound, once open and throbbing, becomes fertile ground for rebuilding. Anger can give way to compassion, envy to self-acceptance, despair to wisdom, and little by little, the shadow turns into strength. Rejection then ceases to be an end and becomes a mirror, a dark but truthful mirror that reflects not only our most hidden hurts, but also the hidden potential to become whole. And when we recognize this, we no longer need the other to return, because something deeper has already come home, the truth of who we really are, beyond the wound, beyond the lack, beyond the fear of not being loved. The sense that your twin flame is with someone else often creates a profound void. The world seems to shrink, joy loses its color, and the soul feels something essential has been stolen. Yet, Through Carl Jung's analytical psychology, that moment of pain can mark the beginning of one of the most significant processes in human existence, the path of individuation. Jung described individuation as the journey by which a person becomes who they truly are. It is the process of integrating the various aspects of the psyche, conscious and unconscious, toward the wholeness of the self. Loss, distancing, or inaccessibility of the other can function as the trigger that forces the soul to begin this journey, not by choice, but by necessity. What seemed like a tragic end begins to reveal itself as a symbolic beginning. At this stage, absence becomes an internal summons. When the other is no longer available to fill our voids, we are pushed to meet our most authentic self, one that does not depend on external love for validation, one that was there before any passion. And this reunion is not easy. It demands courage to cross the dark night of the soul, to walk without guarantees, to listen to the silence once drowned out by the noise of romantic expectations. During this process, the ideal crumbles. The image we created of the other, of the relationship, even of ourselves, begins to fall apart. And this is necessary. Without dissolving the ego built around the relationship, or the idea of it, it's impossible to access what lies beyond the masks. Individuation begins when the identity erected around that bond, or the idea of it, disintegrates. The I who loves comes to be seen as only one part of the whole, not the center of existence. This profound movement carries an invitation to integrate both rejected aspects and unlived potentials. Absence of the other opens space for crucial questions. Who am I apart from this connection? Which parts of me were neglected while I projected so much onto the other? Which talents, desires, or callings did I set aside to fit a story that might never have been mine? These questions have no easy answers, but they carry transformative power. At this point, the twin flame ceases to be an object of desire and becomes an activating archetype, a symbol that awakens the soul's deepest longing to become whole. Paradoxically, it is in the frustration of that love that we find the greatest opportunity to meet ourselves. It is not about renouncing love, but about realizing that true love begins when we stop seeking in another what we need to cultivate within ourselves. Individuation is therefore an act of return, to essence, to authenticity, to inner sovereignty. It is a process of disidentification with the roles we play and the ideals that imprison us. When we perceive that the relationship we thought was the final destination was instead the access path to self-knowledge, pain begins to turn into clarity, not because the other returns, but because we finally turn inward. This return to the self does not imply isolation or renunciation of love, but rather a new way of loving, more conscious, less dependent, more rooted in inner truth than in unconscious fantasies. Loving yourself in this context is not a cliché, but the natural consequence of recognizing and integrating the parts that were left on the sidelines in the name of a connection that did not materialize. Thus, the absence of the twin flame, far from being the end of a story, can be the beginning of the greatest romance you will ever know, the one with your own soul. Because deep down, the other was always the messenger. The true destination was you. Loving someone who isn't with you may seem at first a painful paradox. How is it possible to feel such a real, visceral, transformative connection and at the same time be forced to watch that person live beside someone else? The mind wants answers, the heart wants consolation, but the silent, patient soul may be asking for something even greater, the transcendence of duality. For Jung, the human being is traversed by pairs of opposites, light and shadow, reason and emotion, masculine and feminine, desire and renunciation. Individuation does not mean choosing one side, but integrating these opposites into a new center of consciousness. When we love someone and are deprived of their presence or reciprocity, we are, in fact, being called to perform this integration in its most profound and challenging form. To love without possessing is one of those paradoxes that test the structures of the ego. The ego wants guarantees, continuity, exclusivity. It measures love by what is reciprocated, by what can be held onto, by what becomes security. But the soul loves in another way. It recognizes in the other not an object to be conquered, but a symbolic manifestation of something that exists within it. When that person becomes inaccessible, the challenge is to keep love alive, not as attachment, but as expansion. Integration of opposites, in this context, requires accepting pain without the need to immediately convert it into relief. It demands loving even without contact, honoring the bond even without reciprocity, feeling presence even in absence. This is not submission or self-deception, it is psychic alchemy. It is the transmutation of the desire to have into the desire to be. It is allowing the love you feel for the other to become a channel for meeting the love that has yet to bloom within you. This capacity to love without dominating, to desire without demanding, to feel without imprisoning, reveals a rare and potent emotional maturity. It is the birth of a consciousness that does not depend on the duality with me or with another, right or wrong. They love me or they don't. Love at this level ceases to be a battleground between opposing forces and becomes a sacred space where polarities dissolve. The integration of our inner masculine and feminine also reveals itself in this process. The masculine symbolically represents focus, action, direction. The feminine, receptivity, intuition, nurturing. By projecting masculine or feminine onto the other, as often happens in twin flame relationships, we move away from inner balance. We want the other to bring us what we have not yet cultivated within ourselves. But when they are not here, life forces us to develop those qualities on our own. And it is in this absence that the possibility of a more complete love arises, one sustained by internal integration, not external dependence. Loving someone who is with someone else can also reveal how much we still see love as possession. We confuse exclusivity with depth, reciprocity with self-worth. But there are loves that exist to awaken, not to stay. Loves that are initiations, not destinations. When we understand this, suffering transforms. Resentment gives way to gratitude, frustration to reverence, and loss converts into gain, not in the realm of facts but in the realm of consciousness. Jung asserted that psychic wholeness is a process, not a state. Loving someone who cannot be with us can be, paradoxically, one of the greatest opportunities for progress in that process, because it demands relinquishing the illusion of control and diving into deep acceptance of what is. And by doing so, we transcend duality. We are no longer lovers or beloved, losers or winners. We become love, and when love ceases to be a game of opposites and becomes a silent, loving, integrated presence, something transforms forever. It doesn't matter if the other returns or not, because what truly needed to return has already returned, you yourself, whole, conscious, and at peace. Loving someone who seems to be your soul's counterpart, and yet seeing them with someone else, is one of the most challenging experiences a soul can face. But under the light of Carl Jung's teachings, that pain stops being merely suffering and becomes a profound call to self-knowledge. You have seen that behind idealization lies projection, that rejection activates the shadow, and that the other's absence can be the necessary impetus for individuation. You have also discovered that it is possible to love without possessing, transcending the traps of duality, and recognizing in unrequited love a path of integration and awareness. By understanding that the other is symbol, not destiny, you draw nearer to your wholeness. And it is precisely on this inner journey that true union occurs, not necessarily with whom you love, but with who you are.